Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and I wanted to squeeze this episode with Ryan Cooper in as quickly as possible because it was fresh off of his journey to Texas. And if you don't know who Ryan Cooper is, he is at BBQ Tourist. He works with the National Park Service. He is mapping out the Lewis and Clark Trail, and he is a barbecue fanatic. He travels a lot for his job, so at nights he'll go to barbecue places or off the beaten path or lunch if he can. And he also makes a lot of trips to Texas and other regions, but Texas has been a focus of his, and he wanted to make a trip to Fort Worth because there's so many amazing places in Fort Worth that are popping up. And he got invited to a very special party that Robert Jacob Lerma, barbecue photographer and amazing photographer in general, was putting on. So he extended his trip. This one is really, really great. I don't want to talk too much about it, but a big part of the reason why I wanted to talk to him was because he went to over 20 barbecue joints in less than 10 days. So I wanted to get his methodology, how he plots these trips out, and about all the different places that he went to. And at the very end, at about the 40-minute mark, we go deep into the new places in Fort Worth, so that is worth checking out. That it's really interesting. A lot of places you probably hadn't heard about, so that's another reason why I wanted to get this out as soon as possible so that you can visit these places. Thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time for this. I know you guys are gonna thoroughly enjoy this. And as it so happens, Ryan Cooper is a co-founder with Sean Ludwig, who is at NYC BBQ. They're the co-founder of The Smoke Sheet, which is a sponsor of this podcast, but that is not the reason why I wanted to talk to Ryan. It just so happens to blend perfectly into this. A lot of you guys know about The Smoke Sheet. The Smoke Sheet is a weekly barbecue newsletter with a ton of original content and links to everything in the barbecue world, be it podcasts, be it YouTube stuff, Vimeo stuff, barbecue recipes, barbecue closures, openings, barbecue events that are coming up. It's available at bbqnewsletter.com. bbqnewsletter.com. And a cool thing about that is that the barbecue adventures that both Sean and Ryan go on, they put that information into the barbecue newsletter, into the Smoke Sheet. So this is a perfect tie-in. Check it out, sign up. It's a weekly barbecue newsletter that shows up in your inbox every Wednesday. It's totally worth it. Again, it's available at bbqnewsletter.com. That's bbqnewsletter.com. The Smoke Sheet is barbecue news worth consuming. You'll love it. And because I want you guys to be able to jump right into this interview, I just wanted to let you know that you can check me out on all the social media platforms at Kevin's BBQ Joints. That's Kevin's plural, BBQ Joints. I have a website at kevinsbbqjoints.com. If you're just listening to us on the podcast, you can check out a YouTube video version of this at youtube.com/kevinsbbqjoints. And I have nearly all my podcasts in YouTube form on that, as well as barbecue joint visits, butcher shop visits, tons of other stuff. And also below this in the comment section, I have a list of all the barbecue joints that we cover, so that way you guys can use that as a guide. Have a great week. Thanks so much. Enjoy. Okay, cool. All right, right. Oh, cool. On your right shoulder is Lewis and Clark, right?
Yeah.
So Ryan, this is I think our third time talking on officially like this this capacity.
Yes.
Yes. And so I wanted to reach out because you just got fresh back from a trip to Texas. You were there for a week and a half, 2 weeks?
I was about 10 days, yeah.
10 days. Okay, 10 days. And so I think that the listeners or viewers would be really interested in, at least I'm really interested, and I think they would too, in hearing about you packed in 20 barbecue joints and other stuff in 10 days, and you went to old school places, new school places, the Fort Worth area, which is blowing up, and also too. So in your real life, you're hunting for dinosaurs and mythical creatures. Is that what you do? I forget what it was.
Not at all. Not at all. No, I work for the National Park Service for the Lewis and Clark Trail.
Okay.
Which is why you see Lewis and Clark over my shoulder in the back.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yes. So I make maps for them, web maps, and do travel and tourism stuff for the National Park Service.
So you get to tie in, if people don't know, you get to tie in a lot of that. Like a lot of your travel, you get to tie barbecue trips into your travel. You kind of weave it sometimes.
Yeah, every time I go on a trip for work, I visit a barbecue restaurant in the evening whenever I can, or at lunch. Most of the places along the Lewis and Clark Trail aren't really necessarily known for barbecue, except for St. Louis and Kansas City.
Okay.
I was able to go to several places in Kentucky recently, as well.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, I guess there are some places, but mostly the trails going through the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains and Pacific Northwest. So not necessarily known for barbecue, but still a lot of great barbecue places out there.
And I'll put a link to that. Like, do you have a link to your research somewhere, or
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay?
We do tons and tons of stuff. Lots of stuff with NASA lately.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think we've done about 7 or 8 projects with NASA,
That's
and
so
continue to work with them. So yeah, I've got a lot of links to share.
awesome. So also you have the smoke sheet, and I'll be doing probably a promo before this interview for that, so people will know about that. You have the smoke sheet, and you're also, people can check you out at BBQ Tourist, right?
Right.
Let's get into the weeds on your latest trip. How far in advance did you plan this trip, and then how did you think that it was going to be as big a trip as you had imagined?
No, so originally I wanted to go down there for just to see Fort Worth, because I kept hearing about how much Fort Worth was blowing up. That was originally the plan, was just like to go down for 4 days or something, see
Okay.
Fort Worth and come back. And then I got an invite to a very interesting event held by Robert Jacob Lerma.
Yeah.
And I just could not pass that up.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. I'm so excited to hear all about something that I couldn't. No, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I didn't get a chance to go to it. So yeah, so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that too, because that's very interesting, and you were on the ground at that, and a lot of people probably watched it from afar. So you got invited to that. So you said, okay, I'm gonna retool my trip.
Right. So that's exactly what I did. Was I ended up adding 4 or 5 days in Austin in front of the Fort Worth trip that I had planned.
How do you go about planning your trip ahead of time? Do you start out by mapping out, like, because that's inherently part of your mindset, right? Of anything is mapping something out.
It is. So what? Yeah, it's really funny. The first thing I do is actually I make a map of all the stops that I want to visit.
Okay.
And then I kind of plan things out geographically as best as I can. There's always hiccups that come about or whatever. Some places aren't open on certain days, or they're open on a different day. So it's not just like whatever's closest to one another. But
True.
If I map it out, I can at least kind of get a game plan in my mind on how I'm going to go about doing things.
Is that fun? Do you enjoy that?
Yes. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I just do it in Google Earth. I could do it in a fancy mapping program or something like that, but
Okay.
I just do it in Google Earth. That way I can kind of fly around and I can find directions and things like that. And I can see pictures other people have taken of the place, because that's always helpful to know what it looks like before you go there.
Oh, that's true. That's
that's
a nice tip. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so so I've never. This is the first interview, because Tales from the Pits just had an interesting podcast about doing some barbecue trips, like in 2 days in Houston, like 1 or 2 days in Austin, and that was very enlightening and made me think, okay, Ryan does this stuff all the time, and it would be interesting to get that from an outside of Texas perspective. So Google Earth, I never heard anybody using that. I think I've used it just for fun, like just to kind of check stuff out. But you can map place to place, I'm assuming, and see it and like zoom down into the place, right?
Yeah. So what I do is I put a point everywhere that I'm going to go. I'll search out the restaurant locations, put a point there, and then I'm able to kind of click on it, see what's close by, and you can of course do the street view where you look and see what it looks like and what the parking is and things like that. That way you're familiar with it by the time you get there a little bit.
That's awesome. Then also too, then you're booking. Do you mostly stay in Airbnbs?
Well, in Fort Worth, I stayed in an Airbnb, but in Austin, I just stayed in a hotel.
Okay.
I travel a lot, so I had a lot of points to use. Austin is kind of expensive, so I ended up staying in a hotel with points there. But usually, I like to stay in an Airbnb. My last trip to Texas, I stayed in a great one in Lockhart.
Yeah, which is interesting. When you told me that, I thought, wow, that's something I want to do that, because, and also too, I think do you recommend staying in the city itself or staying like in Lockhart? That's interesting. Was that an interesting overnight time in Lockhart? Because I've never heard anybody spend the night in Lockhart.
Yeah, it was really neat. And I found that, whenever you stay in an Airbnb, it always tells you to let your hosts know kind of what you're doing. And I always say, hey, I'm here for a barbecue trip.
Cool.
And that always is like, they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds wonderful. And they make recommendations and things like that. The people in Lockhart told me I could walk to Black's and Smitty's from their place.
Oh.
Kreitz would be a little bit more of a hike. But
For sure.
I mean, a lot of them already kind of know what there is in the neighborhood. I haven't had anybody yet that thought that was weird. Everybody seems to think that's really cool. So
no, and I think that's really cool. If I had an Airbnb and someone said they're coming for a barbecue, they would get far too much information.
Right.
I'm sure you too. You'd be like, hey, here's the. They're like, please stop.
Yeah.
So then I guess let's jump into your trip, and then I'll pepper you with questions. So
okay.
So where were you starting from? Where do you live?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
So I ended up started in Omaha. I drove down to Kansas City because there was another person named Chris Bingston who owns Common Descent Sauces in Kansas City. He was also invited to this party and wanted to see Texas, so I decided to be his guide.
Cool.
So I picked him up in Kansas City. We drove down through Kansas to Texas, and I do have to tell you about one spot we found in Kansas. We were driving along. We meant to go hit a spot in Wichita, and we were just talking about barbecue and sauce and things like that, and totally blew past it. So we get on he gets on his phone as we're driving, and we found in some tiny little town a barbecue restaurant and bail bonds all in one.
That's awesome.
It was so awesome. I can't tell you it was the best barbecue in the world. I certainly can't tell you about the bail bonds, but it was just hilarious to see the sign that it was like 2 in 1.
How long had that place been around?
It was, I don't know. It looked like it had been a bail bonds, and then they decided, hey, we like barbecue. Let's do that as well. So
do you remember the name?
I remember the name was Boss Hogs, and honestly,
Boss Hogs, that's cool.
Yeah, we only stopped there because it had a really cool, like, colorful painted sign on a wall. We were like, okay, at the very least, we have to get out and take a photo that says Boss Hogs.
That's awesome. And its name isn't like Boss Hog. It would be after Dukes of Hazzard, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it reminded me of. So
that is super cool. Okay, so that's a cool start of the trip. So when I had asked you how many, is that one of the stops in the 20?
No.
So there's more. Oh, geez. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was just the first stop, and that was in Kansas and everything. The next thing we decided to do, we drove down to the Fort Worth area, and kind of didn't hit any barbecue places at first because we got there late. Okay. We decided what we were going to do was, being both outsiders, we had the opportunity to try both Whataburger and In-N-Out Burger.
Nice.
And we were going to do this whole, we did this whole, burger comparison and everything like that. So that was kind of our first thing.
Did you get, a double? Because I remember seeing the photos, but I forget exactly.
I did it a little more scientifically. I ordered the same thing at each place and compared it. Chris, however, just kind of ordered whatever he wanted at each place. And for the most part, I think we liked Whataburger a little better. It just slightly edged out In-N-Out Burger in the criteria that we were judging on. So, but it was a lot of fun.
I can't give an opinion because I
know
it's far too controversial to give an opinion. But I do like, when I was in Texas, I ate a lot of Whataburger, and it almost sounded like people would pronounce it Waterburger. Like, I'm like, what is Waterburger? Like, I think I say I'm going to Waterburger, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But In-N-Out. I grew up eating In-N-Out, so it's tart. My heart, but also my heart, I feel split. My soul is in Texas and California, so
right.
Like as your soul is partially in Texas, I assume. Okay, cool. That's really neat. So I'll put links to all these things, all these little things in a blog piece, so that way people can follow along there too on paper. Okay, cool. So you did that. That was the first night.
Yeah, that was the first night in the Fort Worth area. Then the next day we headed down to Austin. And along the way, we stopped at Brotherton's Black Iron Barbecue in Pflugerville. I met John. I had been to his restaurant before, and then got to hang out with John and his wife at Windy City Smokeout when they went there to cook with Patrick Fegis. John had kind of invited me and said, hey, I've got a bunch of new sandwiches I want to kind of try out on you. So he ended up cooking his version of Nashville hot chicken.
Okay.
and a Cuban. And apparently it was just like perfect timing because there's this hot chicken. Of course, there's a hot chicken craze nationwide, but there's also this big Popeyes
Popeyes
versus
thing.
Chick-fil-A thing. And John is just like selling that sandwich like crazy, which is great. It was
Oh,
just
that's so
perfect time.
cool. Good for him. That's awesome.
Yeah, and the sandwich was extremely good. I
Oh,
mean, it
sure.
was just everything he does is great, but that was fantastic. The Cuban was great as well. So
That sounds awesome for you and Chris. And so, what was Chris's impression of Brotherson's?
he loved it, of course. We were also, as we're standing in the line, we were right in front of us was Chase Colston, who started the Red Dirt Festival.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
Chase ended up sitting down with us and having lunch. It was our first time to meet him. So it was John Brotherton and his wife, Chase, Chris, and I all eating hot chicken and Cuban sandwiches. And then Chris, of course, brought out all his hot sauces and barbecue sauces. So it was really,
Oh.
I got some great pictures of all these Texans like trying out sauces. You know, they always say
Yeah,
Texans
exactly.
don't like sauce, but these guys seem to like the hot sauce.
Secretly,
So it was great.
they all like sauce. They secretly, there's like 6 guys that don't.
Right.
But that's cool. Right there is a great trip. Like your trip is already. Like,
Yep.
That would have been if you had to go back home for work. That would be perfect. So that's awesome. Okay, that's
Exactly.
Cool. Okay, so then did you go? So was
Yeah.
that Saturday? Was that the Saturday of the party? Or?
Yep. So we pretty much went from Brotherton's, checked into the hotel, threw our bags in the rooms, and then headed over to Robert's party.
And Robert's party was originally supposed to be at his house, and it was supposed to be a small little affair. And then with anything with Robert, it blew up. And then Robert Jacob Lerman, the photographer, the barbecue photographer, one of a few that are infamous or famous. So then this was at a different location, wasn't it? This was at a bigger location.
Yeah, it was actually at the home of the owner of Bangers Sausage in Austin.
That
so they have a gorgeous house right there near downtown Austin, and it was perfect. It was absolutely beautiful. The only thing that was difficult was it was really pretty hot. I think it was over 100 degrees there, so everybody was, drinking water and fluids as much as they could. It was pretty warm, but other than that, it was great. The food was wonderful. The company was fantastic.
Can you give a 3-5 minute overview of what it was? Who was there, and like how many smokers were there?
There were at least 7 smokers. Almost everything there was from mill scale, I believe.
Yeah.
So they had a bunch of giant smokers there, a lot of offset smokers. They had several different asado style cookers and kind of outdoor live fire type devices as well.
Yeah,
It was
they had
just
some
kind of
stuff
like
with those like pyramid style things. Or whatever.
yeah. I think they called that the cone.
Cone, is it a cone? Okay.
Yeah, and so there's one that was basically there were like all these chickens hanging down from the cone over live fire. Things like that.
You had people you had like Elliot Moss there. You had
So the pitmasters were like Elliot Moss came in from North Carolina. We had Miguel Vidal from Valentina's, and obviously the folks from Bangers were there. We had Louie Miller did beef ribs there.
Leonard was there.
Yeah, Leonard was there from Truth Barbecue in Houston. Had Bert Bachman from Slab in LA. It was just like, and then of course for me the big one was Tuffy Stone.
Yeah.
Was cooking there as well. So it was just like this star-studded event where everywhere you turned there was somebody amazing. So it was really
and Zach from Scott's. Like it was just like he didn't cook, but he came and
yeah, he helped out a little. Zach teamed up with Miguel, I think, and helped him out. So Zach was kind of like his pit hands for the night.
Oh, that's cool.
And everything like that.
How interesting. And there was just a bunch of barbecue fans, people that are well known in the industry, but just people that also just love barbecue.
Yeah, a lot of people that I knew only from Instagram and online. A lot of media people, similar to myself that have a presence on Instagram or things like that, or a podcast. The guys from Tales from the Pits were there. Abe Delgado from I Crush Barbecue was there. Got to meet him for the first time, which was awesome.
That's awesome. Such a great guy.
Yeah.
But all 3 of those guys, Andrew, Brian from Tales, and then Abe. That's awesome. That's killer.
Yep.
And then also wasn't Cost of Goods Told.
That's right. Connor was there as well. Yep.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So that was, how long did that last? Was that 4 or 5 hours? Or?
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours. It was kind of interesting. Like, we got there and they would kind of serve little bits of food here and there. It wasn't like all at once all the food was served. It was like over here, as soon as we got there, Leonard and Bert were serving some sort of beef stuff. I don't even know.
Like a steak
I just
thing or something, right?
basically they just handed you meat and you ate it, and just like we're in heaven instantly. So the other one that looked really interesting, I actually didn't get to try it, but there was like a hoe cake with some beans and pork that Ted from Bangers had made, and I saw several people who were just like staring off into space as they were eating that, like it was the best thing they ever had in their lives. So
that's so cool.
It was awesome.
Very, very unique, and it's something that a lot of people from afar. So at least we got a chance to kind of get there through you. That was really cool. That's cool. Did you get, because of how long it was and how much you were consuming and how hot it was, did you go anywhere else that night?
No, we we ended up staying fairly late, and well, I'm sure there were others that stayed extremely late, but I hung out with the podcast crew for quite a long time. Brian and Andrew ended up getting an entire brisket and borrowing Leonard's Yeti cooler to take it back to Houston or whatever.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, there was a little bit of food left over at the very end, and there was absolutely no water and no beer, no liquid left because everybody drank that down. But there was a little bit of food.
That's really cool. That's an awesome experience, and I'll put links to all the photos and all the things that we all missed out on. So. I'm not bitter at all. I'm joking. I'm not bitter. I'm like, damn. But, things come up. There's lots of good stuff. So then the next day, Sunday, you were in Austin. Where'd you go from there?
Sunday morning, pretty much the party continued at Valentina's Tex-Mex. A lot of people, especially from out of town, ended up kind of reconvening the party there, getting tacos. And, of course, it was Sunday morning, so they served barbacoa. So
That's
it
cool.
was, we were there with, Grill Mama, Melissa was there. Robert Sierra and his family came.
Oh, that's cool.
And then Miguel kept coming out and just giving us more and more food. He would serve like his desserts and things like that. It was unreal. Robert Lerma, of course, was there. And then Elliot Moss, the guys from Millscale came. Zach Parker was there. It was pretty much Tuffy was there. It was pretty much the party just came back to Valentina's the next day.
That sounds terrible. That just sounds awful. It's just ridiculously awful. And then did you guys go to Interstellar too?
Chris and I ended up going to meet a few other people. We met Michael Fulmer, who does the Houston Barbecue Festival, was there. And then Cody from Hoodoo Brown was there as well.
Cool.
And Erica Vermillion, who's known as the Mexican Barbie. We all decided to go to Interstellar after that.
Cool. How was that? What do you recommend eating there?
I only ate one thing because I had eaten too much at Valentina's. The thing that I thought was really interesting, they had lamb shank that was smoked. That's something you don't see everywhere. They had some sort of potatoes that they actually smoked, like potatoes au gratin. And so that was the one bite I had, was the potatoes.
Oh, that's cool. So how far away is that from Valentina?
It was pretty far. It was pretty much like on the opposite side of Austin, because Valentina's is pretty far south. Interstellar is pretty far north.
Okay.
So it was kind of a long drive, actually.
Was this Sunday? I know some people did go to Snow's. I noticed that. I think Scott Holmes from Little Miss Barbecue, he went to.
He was there.
I saw him at Snow's that morning. I was stalking all you guys, so he was there. But did you on Sunday? Did you go anywhere else, or did you figure that would be kind of like a day to kind of rest before the next part of your journey?
We didn't go any place until later in the evening. We ended up going to the Switch in Dripping Springs, and we didn't get any barbecue really there. That's kind of why we picked the Switch, was because they have kind of a Cajun influence, and we were kind of, ready for some different flavors and everything like that. So we ended up having a fantastic meal
So
at the
for people
Switch.
that might not know, the Switch is the second location for Style Switch, which is in not North Austin, but it's a northern part of Austin.
Right, exactly. It's the same people that own it, but their menus are very, very different. I think you can get some of the same barbecue items at the Switch that you can get at Style Switch, but the Switch also has this kind of Cajun
Yeah.
slant to the menu as well. So we ended up getting gumbo, shrimp po' boy, and then a couple of different kinds of wings. Their wings were fantastic as well.
I've heard really good things, and that's like I don't think of wings. That's not the first thing I think of when I think of barbecue, but I've heard great things about their wings.
Yeah, they had a really like kind of a spicy buffalo
Huh.
type wing, and then we also got one that had Alabama white sauce that was also very good.
That's so cool. I'm
Yeah.
starving. I haven't eaten dinner yet. This is
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, here's a disclaimer. If you're listening to this now and you haven't eaten, pull over and eat, and then
Right.
listen to the rest so you don't get angry. This is all Sunday night. So then, were you planning Monday to get back on the road and go to more spots? Or?
Yeah, so Monday we basically had plans to hit all of the classic Central Texas barbecue joints that we could. So Chris had never been, being from Kansas City, had never really experienced Texas barbecue before, especially like classic old school Central Texas. So we started our trip there in Lockhart at Smitty's. Just got a couple of kinds of sausages, and he soaked in the atmosphere and was basically amazed about seeing the fires lit right there on the ground inside the building and everything like that.
The most dangerous barbecue joint for children that there is.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But it is a must visit. It's a must visit if you love barbecue.
Yeah, it was super cool to see that. We didn't stay too long there because we knew we had a pretty long day, so we ended up just eating a little sausage and hitting the road, and we just went down to Kreitz after that. Cool thing for me about that, I've been to Kreitz several times, but I got to finally meet, after the fourth time's the charm, I guess, I got to meet Roy Perez.
Oh, that's
and
so great.
So shake his hand and take a photo with him, and he was extremely nice.
Such a
great guy.
Did you get a photo of yourself cutting the meat?
Yeah, I think that must be kind of his
I think
his
is,
little
right?
signature thing that he does. Is he gives you the knife and you stand there as if you're teaching him how to slice brisket or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen that post before, and I was wondering like how'd that come about? Then I'm like, Ryan's doing that same one.
Yeah, and then what was it actually ended up getting really, really busy as we were standing there. So he didn't have a lot of time to talk after a while. He was legit, slicing brisket and he just jumped right in there and worked, which was great, to see him get up there and do that. He wasn't too much of a barbecue celebrity not to work. So
he's recovering from a knee surgery, I think, too.
Yeah, he was having knee problems and said that he had just had surgery, and he was kind of slow to kind of get up out of the chair and shake my hand, but once he was up, he was fine, and he was dove right in and was working.
That's really cool, and that's a cool thing if people get a chance to see him at Kreitz. That's awesome.
Yeah,
and it's a must visit place, and you really enjoyed the food there, right?
Yeah, we got a couple of different kinds of sausages. We got some brisket, and then their side dishes were great. Their potato salad and their kraut was really, really fantastic, actually. I think that was one of Chris's favorite places.
Oh, really? That's cool. That's good to know. And I like that you're bringing these places up because a lot of people tend to go to what's the hottest new thing. And so I think it's important that you go there, too, so you get a sense of why all these other places exist.
Yeah.
So where do you go from there? From
there, we went to City Market in Luling.
So cool.
And the entire purpose, I'll tell you a short story about this.
Sure.
I'm friends with Artie Davis, who started the American Royal barbecue sauce competition. Mm-hmm. So he's like this Kansas City barbecue legend. He's in the Barbecue Hall of Fame. And I once asked Artie, I said, Artie, what's your desert island like barbecue sauce? If you could only have one sauce. And he said, he couldn't really tell me that, but it would probably be City Market in Luling, it's their sauce because it's so unique and mustardy, and just you can almost drink it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I think you told me that story too before, and I thought that's so crazy. And I do love that sauce is so unique and so wonderful.
Right. Yeah. So I found it fascinating that this Kansas City barbecue sauce guy chose a sauce from
It's
Texas.
amazing.
And so it was great for Chris to be able to, as a sauce
True. Yeah,
guy,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
sit
That's so
down.
good.
He could deconstruct what was in there. He said it sounded very simple. It was like some vinegar, a lot of mustard, some black pepper, So
Did he like it?
yeah, we loved it. We bought several bottles of it. So
That's really cool. So, and then also too, it's just a very unique the way that the building, like the restaurant itself, is shaped and the way the pits are. That's a cool spot.
yeah, so what we ended up doing was basically we just parked. You walk in and it's it's cash only. You have to go into this kind of pit room to place your order and get your meats, and then you pay for your meats separately from your sides and your drinks and everything like that.
Yeah, it's different.
So you're kind of forced to go through this smoky, cool-looking pit room, get your food, and then come out and get the rest of your food. So it was really cool. All we got there was sausage, and so this is Artie's favorite snack. He says barbecue snack is a little slice of the sausage on a cracker with a dab of the sauce.
Oh.
And we sat there and we ate way too much of that for however many places we had yet to go. So
that's so great. That's kind of from people that I've met in Texas, and people that like, it's kind of something that a lot of workers like would have a quick snack, or they'd have like in between, like right before service started, they'd have that as a snack. And it's something that in California we would never think of that specifically as something to eat. It's so unique and wonderful.
Yeah, and probably more than any other place, that one was kind of that traditional barbecue place that had people from all walks of life in there. It had families, young people, old people, people from different backgrounds. It was just fantastic.
That's cool. So roughly what time of day is it so you've gone to Smitty's, Kreitz, to City Market?
So yeah, it's probably 1:00, and we, lunchtime, we hit the road, and we drove up to Rockdale to see Bret Horan at Bret's Backyard Barbecue. It was a Monday, so
I was gonna say it was a Monday. I was gonna say it's a Monday.
He's closed on Monday, but he is such a great guy. He decided to come on in and meet us and talk to us about barbecue. We probably asked him, questions that he hears every day, and took up way too much of his time. But he was extremely gracious and just an awesome guy. Great to hear his story. He's incredibly humble and extremely hardworking. I just love kind of chatting with him and kind of seeing what he's built, and how I believe it's not even a year old. It's coming up on the 1-year anniversary. It was neat hearing his plans for the future, but just to hear kind of how far that place has come in a short amount of time was great.
Yeah, and he's coming from an IT background to this, and his story. I mean, it's a great story, and it does seem like he's one of the hardest working. Like all barbecue people work hard, but it feels like there's something special about Bret.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he worked nonstop. It looked like he's a tired guy. He puts his heart and soul into it, but he seems extremely grateful for the success that he's achieved in that time due to that hard work.
And his staff seems so on board with him, and they're all the same. They all want to work as hard and do as well. Like, it just seems like a happy staff.
He talked about his staff. They weren't even there, but he was bragging them up. He has a staff of, a lot of them are younger girls who work there, who are either just out of high school or in high school or getting ready to go to college. And he was talking about them, some of them starting at Texas A&M and getting into the barbecue program there, getting into the meat science.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen posts like that.
Yeah. He was proud of them like they're his kids.
That's cool. That's so cool.
It was awesome. It was really awesome to see that he basically is able to mentor them and show them the value of working hard.
Mm-hmm. It's invaluable.
Right.
So then from there, did you go to somewhere else pretty close by?
Yeah, we did. So we ended up going to Taylor, to Louie Miller. Got there I think it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then, so we went up there. Everything we ordered from the menu, they were sold out of, except for beef ribs.
Okay.
So
Oh, well.
we're
so
like,
sad.
okay. Yeah. So we ended up getting, this giant beef rib. I think it cost it was over $50. I don't know how many pounds the thing was. It was a monster, but it was just fantastic. And this was, we had just had beef ribs that Wayne had cooked the night before, but it was nirvana for me. It was fantastic.
The bark it's gorgeous, and it's so peppery and unctuous. Yeah, it's a delicious piece of meat. You guys finished it, right?
We didn't. I think I ended up making 3 sandwiches with it.
Oh, I thought, okay.
And Chris made 3 sandwiches with it, and that was 6 sandwiches between the two of us, and we still had half the rib left.
Now, for people that might not know, when you're sandwich, did you put like onions and pickles, or did?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I ended up putting the beef rib on a piece of bread and threw some pickles and onions on there, and then a little bit of sauce. It seemed like he had a couple of different kinds of sauce. There was one that was just extremely good. It was not the sauce that they put in the little cup on your tray. It was one that was on the table. They were completely different.
Oh, okay, I haven't had that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I can't even tell you, it wasn't really extremely sweet, which is good. Yeah. But it had just a little bit of something unique that worked really well with the beef.
Ah, excellent. Okay, well, that's a good tip. Try it and make sure you make
it. Try that sauce just a little bit. You don't need a lot.
And that sauce, that thing in the cup, it's like a soupy sauce thing. And
yeah.
Very
runny. I don't even know what it is either. Chris liked that sauce a lot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was fantastic.
Excellent. Okay, so was that it for that day?
That was it. That was all.
Where did you stay? Yeah. Where did you stay in Taylor, or where? No,
we ended up driving all the way back to Dripping Springs, where we had been originally. Okay. We were staying nearby the switch.
Okay.
So yeah, we did this big Central Texas loop basically.
Okay.
Which was fine. I mean, it was great.
How did Chris feel at the end of that day? Because you're a seasoned pro, but what did he think about that?
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna eat salad for a month after this. I can't eat any more meat. And
I've heard people say that.
Yep.
Excellent. So this was on a Monday. Then Tuesday, did he take off and then you were on your own, or?
No, we had one more stop on Tuesday, which was really.
Oh, this was Tuesday.
Yeah. So the next day, Tuesday, we ended up going to Bangers and getting a tour of Bangers from Ted.
Killer.
There. And I thought we were first of all, I didn't know that. I had never been to Bangers before. And I didn't know it was as huge and impressive and developed as it is. So when Ted said, "Hey, come by and I'll give you a tour of the pits," I thought that would be like a 5-minute, 10-minute little thing. Like, here's the pits. No. I mean, he took us on the most exhaustive, like 2-hour tour of the whole place, and they have amazing facilities. So we started out kind of looking at the room where they have all the different beers that they have on tap connected.
Yeah.
It was.
I think they have 200. I think they have 200 beers.
It was unreal. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they keep it straight, but it was very interesting. And of course, what was really cool was seeing that they had experts in beer who are just as big of like nerds about beer as we are about barbecue.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was really neat because they could all come together and kind of like share their expertise and their nerddom. But
I love that.
But it's about different things. So.
Oh, that's really cool. And then did he show you like their fermentation? Because they have a fermentation program and.
Yeah, I mean, so he ended up showing us they have a very impressive like sausage making facility. He showed us the whole hog pit room, which was kind of why I was there, was to see that. Mm-hmm. he talked about how he basically developed those pits and things like that. Then he showed us the pickling room and all sorts of, I mean, like
mad
sausage
scientist
spices. Yeah. But it just kept going on and on and on forever. It was like every single, and it looked like they were expanding it even more. They were actually doing work on the, like the outside seating area while we were there.
And they said there's a 5-year plan kind of thing. So
and
it's on Raineys. For people that don't know, it's on Rainey Street, which is really close to downtown. It's like within downtown, but it's a street where there's a bunch of different homes that they've turned into bars and restaurants, and it's very unique to Austin. I think people should visit Rainey Street. It gets a little nuts sometimes with scooters and college kids, but it's worth going.
It's an example of revitalization of an area that had been economically depressed. There were these old houses. I believe they were, drug houses.
Yeah, he said one of them was a crack house that they took over.
It was an active crack house at the time.
an active crack house.
I mean, it was good. He said he taught one of the people that was there how to hunt squirrels right there in the out in the yard. There was a homeless man that would kill squirrels and then cook them and eat them.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean but they've taken that and they've made it into this extremely impressive, amazing place where they're doing great things with food, like really simple things, old fashioned kind of things with food that just taste amazing.
Yeah.
So the day we were there, of course, they weren't doing whole hog. They do that on Thursday through Sunday. But they, of course, have all these different amazing kinds of sausages on the menu. So we ended up, I ended up getting duck and bacon.
Yeah, that one sounds
sausage,
so good.
And it had some sort of berries or something in there as well. And then their German potato salad, which was some of the best I've ever had in my life.
I've heard amazing things. I didn't have that the last time I was there.
I mean, just the food that they were producing there was fantastic.
And what's funny is I feel like a lot of people know about it, but I feel like it's pretty low on the radar for people.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be at all.
I mean, that's going to be a place. And what's really great about it is it is open, like, I believe it's 7 days a week. So, I mean, a lot of barbecue places in Austin are closed on Mondays, but Bangers is one of those places that you can go to on a Monday or on a Sunday, and it's open.
They get great food, get great beers.
Absolutely.
It's perfect. And it was funny because Ted was saying too, I keep referring back to the interview, but he said if you have $20 or $30, you can get food and you get alcohol. Like you can go on a date there, but you could also go crazy, but you don't have to. Like it's a place where you can not, if you're budget conscious, you can go and have a good meal.
Absolutely. Yeah, we didn't end up spending a huge amount of money there at all. It was really fantastic.
So where to next?
So after that, our Austin adventure, Central Texas adventure was over. Chris flew back to Kansas City, and I headed up to Fort Worth.
All right, let's hear the rundown because Fort Worth is I think that's worth discussing in detail. So jump in. I won't interrupt you as much as.
Okay, so Fort Worth was where it's at. I mean, Fort Worth, I ended up getting a bed and breakfast there that was kind of centrally located, and the first place that I hit was the place that I hear the most about lately, and that's Panther City. Panther City literally was so good, and I'm not exaggerating, and maybe I shouldn't even admit this, but it was so good that I was like getting tears in my eyes.
Wow.
Like it was just an emotional experience. It was just that fantastic.
What did you order?
So I ended up getting there early because I was worried that there'd be this huge line, and there was a line, but there were only maybe 10 people ahead of me when I got there. I ended up ordering kind of the things on the menu that are more special, kind of Tex-Mex. Can't remember what it's called on the menu, but it's something like unique items or something like that. Okay. So ended up getting brisket tacos, the pork belly burnt ends, and their brisket elote. So I was getting that, thinking it was a side, but that brisket elote is a meal in itself. I mean, you could literally go there, probably just order that and be full afterwards.
And it's right next to it, isn't it? Right next to a bar?
Yes, in fact. So they were kind of outside serving out of a truck. There's a bar next door, and you actually go in and sit in the bar and eat there. That's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
And then it looks like next door to that bar is where they will build their permanent location.
So when you got the tray and the plate, and then you started getting into it, then you realized this is something special.
Yeah, it was a couple of bites. It was hilarious. Like I would just take a bite of each thing. I think I started with the pork belly burnt in. Just was, I knew that would be good. You know, that's kind of what they're known for, and it was fantastic. And then got into the elote. That was unreal. And then the taco, and I'm just like sitting there, like taking a bite, like smiling, tearing up, texting people back home, telling them how amazing this is, you know. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was that. I mean, I started off with a bang. I started off in Fort Worth with probably one of the best barbecue meals I've ever had. So
that's amazing. That's this episode sponsored by the Panther City Barbecue.
Right. Yeah.
No, but that's great to hear, and that's nice for. Okay, so that's Panther City. I've heard. I've never had their food, and now I want their food, and I'm sure if you're listening or watching this, that will be your stop. So they open. What days of the week they open?
It's either Wednesday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday, I believe.
So did you eat all your food there because it was so good, or did you pack part of it up and head on to your next spot?
I packed it up, and I kind of did that just because I wanted to savor that meal a little bit and have some left over. So I packed that up, and I headed. After that, I went to Flores. So I'd been hearing about this place, Flores, that was in Whitney for a long time, and I never had the chance to go there. So then they were in Fort Worth. I was like, okay, I got to get there as soon as I can. So I ended up getting tacos there as well. Kind of like they do something similar where it's kind of barbecue and tacos. Also fantastic. Just a wonderful experience. Not at the same level as Panther City was, but I only ordered like a smaller, item of food, so I didn't try everything on the menu or anything like that. But it was very enjoyable. It looked like it was in a new area, up and coming area that they're building a lot of like bike trails and
that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
and that's why he moved there. I think one of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant move, because that place is going to be really booming. I think in a few years.
So if Fort Worth just had those two places, that'd be great, right?
Yep, that would be. I'd already be happy.
That'd be better than a lot of cities across the United States. Yep. So then, did you go anywhere else that day?
No. I ended up kind of calling it good and heading home after that. I was pretty stuffed and kind of on a high,
Well, and also for finding something like Panther City, people might not realize how great it was, and you probably didn't realize it was at that level. So that's like, it's kind of hard to. You kind of don't want to just eat too much after that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the next Fort Worth place you went to?
Next Fort Worth place was, this was interesting. So I ended up going to hang out with AJ from AJ's Custom Cookers, seeing him build some different pits and talk to him and learning all about kind of what he does.
Such a cool guy.
And then he decided to kind of take me on a tour of a couple of spots that he's familiar with, and the first one we went to was Lahaulax, which he actually built the pit there. And Derek Walker is the pitmaster owner's name, and it was another fantastic meal. I would really highly recommend going there.
Okay.
Interesting place. It's very, very small. Line out the door, and we got there shortly after 11. So we were early, and it had a steady flow of customers.
Wow.
He is known as like the rib king or the slab king,
or rib
like
tips
that.
or something too.
Yeah, and that is, I can see why, because his ribs and rib tips were fantastic.
That's what I've heard.
The brisket and other meats, the turkey was extremely good. But the ribs and rib tips were phenomenal. So
get those at Smokeaholics for sure.
Yeah, that was another great place. It was just
and that one probably a lot of people haven't heard of.
Yeah, that one was kind of new to me. In fact, I had heard of it and I'd heard of Derek, but it wasn't necessarily high on my list or anything, and it was just because I was unfamiliar with it. So it was good to connect with a local person like AJ that could tell me, hey, you got to check out this.
And that's a good tip too, is connect with a local person. Yeah.
Yep. If you can, even if you do it online, that's a great thing to do, is kind of ask somebody that knows.
Mm-hmm. Where do you guys went to one or two other places, right?
We went to one more. We went to Derek Allen's, which is kind of in the same area. It's actually not far from Panther City. I had tried to go there the day before, and they were sold out.
Oh, okay.
And that was super early. It was like 1, and they were completely sold out. So, So AJ was like, "Hey, let's go to Derek Allen's, and we'll get there early so that they aren't sold out." And it was good that we went there. They also had a steady stream of customers and everything.
Their food looks really good online too.
They're unique in that they serve everything. I believe all their beef is Wagyu beef.
Wow.
So it's extremely, extremely high quality brisket and beef ribs and things like that there. Very rich though.
Yeah, as Wagyu beef gets, and it's also you've already had like a 7-day diet of rich food.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't eat a tremendous amount of food there.
Mm-hmm.
I just took a couple of bites. Yeah. Everything was great. But getting to know Derek, just to kind of talk to him and learning about, he actually built the 2 pits that he uses in his pit room and gave me a little tour.
Oh,
they're unique in that they are actually upright. They're offset smokers, but they're standing up. And so it actually conserves a lot of space in the pit room. Yeah. I think he probably could have gotten a couple more in there as well, but it was really neat.
That is really neat. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And the other thing that he does that I thought was cool was he has a rub company called Dirty Dalmatian Rubs. Oh. And so that's actually, I had heard of that before I had heard of his restaurant. And so he has a little section of the restaurant where he sells the different kinds of rubs.
Oh, that's cool.
So he has one that's like a bark builder. I think that's what it's called, which is funny because it's a Dalmatian. So it's all about bark and barking. But
barbecue people are always so clever and so punny. Right. I love it.
So I can't wait to try that out. Next time I smoke a brisket, I'll end up using that.
So did I was going to say, because AJ didn't build the pits for Derek Allen, right?
He did not build Derek Allen's pits. Derek did those himself, but he did. They had collaborated on.
Yeah, he did something, right, with him, or
some project, something to do with something about sausage, I think.
Okay.
Some sort of thing to help him with sausage.
Okay, cool. So that's 4 really cool spots in Fort Worth. So where to next?
The next day was the pretty big day, and I knew it was going to be kind of like the marathon. We ended up I kept saying, I really wanted to go to a couple of places, and then local people that I talked to would say, well, you got to go to this other place. And I was thinking, okay. So I ended up adding, 4 spots to the list based on kind of local recommendations.
Okay.
And so I ended up kind of driving back and forth between Fort Worth and Arlington. But so the first one I went to was Hurtado, mm-hmm. which is actually in Arlington. I had met Brandon Hurtado beforehand, but finally I got to go there and try his food. Phenomenal. It's interesting. It's another kind of Tex-Mex twist on barbecue. It was all extremely good. He had pork belly burnt ends that were great. And then what he does that's unusual is he smokes quail.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that.
Yeah, so he has a little quail that he serves as well. So I got to try some different things at his. I really liked, he had like verde salsa, which was nice and spicy. All of his food was really quite good as well. I mean, that would have been like my top spot had I not already gone to, all these other fantastic spots. So Hurtado was wonderful. And then from there, I ended up meeting up with a guy he's going to be opening a barbecue place in Fort Worth. His name is Daryl Byers, and he has a place that's called 7 Acres Barbecue.
Okay.
So Daryl was my tour guide for the day and drove me to all these places, which was great. So he drove me to Zavala's after that, which was awesome.
Oh man, another one. Yeah.
And it was another one that I actually hadn't planned on going to Zavala's, but it was like, you gotta go to Zavala's. So I was just kind of forced to go, which was, I'm glad I was, because it was fantastic as well. I ended up getting tacos there and some brisket.
Doesn't Zavala use beef brisket lard, or like the drip?
Yeah, something like that. And the tortillas were fantastic. I mean, they were really puffy and kind of like just really good. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's in Fort Worth. I think it was some other city like closer to Arlington. Okay. So those two were kind of farther out.
Okay. I
want to say it's like Graham City or some other kind of place outside of Fort Worth. So got tacos, and literally we were just like in and out of there because we had other places to hit. But he had a substantial line, so we were there quite a long time, just kind of in line.
Yeah.
And it's another very, very small place, just like Lahaulax is. So from Zavala's, we went to a new place that was actually having their opening or their first pop-up, and that was Lillian's Barbecue. And Lillian's is Jim Laro, who some people might know from the Texas Barbecue Facebook group. He's really active on there. He's one of the moderators.
Yeah.
And just a tremendous guy, just a wonderful guy. He and his wife Mandy are just really sweet people.
Stellar people, yeah.
And they're fantastic cooks. I mean, I was telling Jim, I said, this is really, really great food. Like, this food has a lot of great flavor. I especially liked his turkey, and then he has like a bacon wrapped jalapeno popper type.
I think he called it brisket Twinkies when I talked to him.
Brisket Twinkies, or some people were calling them like brisket bombs or something like that too. So I don't know. It was good. So that was fantastic. And then the best thing about for Jim that he was serving was the sausages he made. He's really good at sausage, and his I don't know what he does with the casing, but it's just got nice snap and it's not chewy or anything like that. It was just
that's great,
perfect. He had like the jalapeno cheddar sausage that was really, really tasty. So
that's cool that you had a chance to go see him, because it was just because he's not popping up again, I think, until October. So.
Yeah, it was awesome to be there and support him on his first day. He had a steady crowd of people kind of coming as well, but it was really neat to kind of see them, starting off. And I told him, I'm like, I have no complaints about this food whatsoever. It's all fantastic.
That's great to hear. And I talked to him I talked to them yesterday actually to get their reaction to their first day. So that way people that are interested in going to actually doing what they're doing right now, they could see kind of what the reaction is and what the feelings and like the tips and tricks from going from catering to opening up doing your first pop-up.
And I'm sure his experience was very different from mine, because I went there and thought it was fantastic and flawless. And I know as a first-time guy, every little hiccup and hurdle probably seems almost insurmountable, but he got through it and he did a great job.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got a chance. So what was the fourth location you guys went to?
The fourth location was also a grand opening, and that was Dane's Craft Barbecue. They just recently announced that they were having their grand opening at a location. I think it's called Lola's Trailer Park. Mm-hmm. It's a bar. It's a fantastic space. Going to be perfect for them because they have, a bar. They have a stage. They have lots of shaded areas with big trees and outdoor seating and everything. So it'll offer them a lot of amenities that will be perfect for a new barbecue place.
That's great.
The lines at Dane's were insane. They were probably the craziest lines that we experienced anywhere, which is fantastic. I mean, everybody came out to support him, and I think we were in line for about an hour and a half. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it was a long line, and it was hot out there, but it was worth it. It was fantastic.
Wow, like just with that, there's an amazing amount of barbecue in Fort Worth. Gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah, so we ended up there. We got a couple of kinds of sausages. I got one that was like blueberry
Yeah,
sausage.
like a certain kind of cheese or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, and then the other thing we got were the desserts. There were also fantastic. We ended up getting, there was like a bourbon pecan, smoked bourbon pecan pie, and then a buttermilk pie. Both were. We managed to find room for that.
Yeah, I could too. That's awesome. That's really cool. And then Danes, did you get a chance to get brisket, or was it already sold out by the time you got
They were not sold out. They served little samples of like burnt ends, fatty brisket. So that's the only brisket that we tried, which was really great, nice and peppery. Great bark on that. But we didn't order any brisket. We were pretty
there?
full.
It was stop 4 of the day. Yes.
Yeah, and then so we ended up going back to Hurtado because that's where my car was parked. And Brandon yells for us. He says, "I forgot to serve you guys tri-tip." So we're like, "Oh my gosh, tri-tip." So we went over there, and I mean, we had just been to 4 barbecue places, and he sliced and tri-tip, and his tri-tip was so good that we were just still eating, even after that.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm glad we went back and got the tri-tip.
And that's unique to Texas, but tri-tip is it's prevalent here in California.
Right.
When it's done right, it's amazing, and you have to be able to cut it properly too. But
Yeah, he sliced it really thin, and it wasn't overdone. It was perfect.
Cool. That's awesome.
So then the next day was the last stop in Fort Worth, and that was kind of a big one, and that is Goldie's Barbecue. They were doing a pop-up. Again, it was at Zavala's because Zavala's is not open on Sunday, so Goldie's was able to utilize that space and do a pop-up there, which was awesome.
And Goldie's is Dylan from Law Barbecue as well as Truth, and all. He worked at a bunch of different places.
Yeah, it sounded like there were 4 different pit masters that were involved in this. All had great experience at various kind of Central Texas location. I think Micklethwait might have been one of them, and you could tell like that was up there with Panther City in terms of, it was a great way to kind of end the trip. Goldie's was phenomenal.
And I think wasn't Brian from Tales from the Pits there?
Yep, it was kind of like another family reunion type thing, because it was like all these people from the barbecue community were there. Brian from Tales from the Pits was there. Dane, who had just had his first day, was there along with his pitmaster Thomas and his wife, or his fiance. Willow came up from Houston for this event, and there were other people just kind of there. A lot of barbecue fans who were there. JQ from JQ's Tex-Mex, Joseph
Queller,
came with it as well. Yep.
Yeah.
So it was like a family reunion.
It's almost like a bookend
out
of your trip, like the Lerma stuff to this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up all ordering a bunch of food and all of us sitting down together and sharing it. So I think we pretty much ordered everything on the menu there.
Don't they? Did they bring their own baked goods? Because I know at Goldie's when they open, they're going to have they're to make their own bread and everything.
They made their own bread, and that was phenomenal. I mean, that in itself was like, oh my gosh, this is the best bread ever. And then to eat like the sausage and the brisket on the bread,
even
and
the turkey.
Turkey. Yep. Yeah. So I ended up making little turkey sandwiches with the bread, and it was really good.
Was that packed there?
It was also packed. It was pretty much the same as Zavala's had been the day before. It was like the longest line we had experienced, and I don't know what time it was, but there was a guy maybe around 12:30 or 1 that was given the last man standing sign, and so they sold out relatively quickly. But yeah, it was packed. It was a great experience.
Oh, so cool.
A lot of barbecue people there, celebrating and supporting one another, and so it was fantastic. A great way to kind of end my Fort Worth Arlington adventure.
Wow, that's great. So Would you recommend? So people put Austin, they put Houston. Houston's huge and blowing up, and it's been blowing up. But then a lot of people go to Dallas, but Fort Worth is, and it's how far away if from Dallas proper is Fort Worth? 'Cause I've never been to Fort Worth. I don't think.
I mean, it was probably 30 miles, I think, or
Okay.
something like that, depending on where you're at in Dallas. I mean, that's a huge area.
Did you stay in Fort Worth?
Yeah, I ended up staying fairly central location in Fort Worth, actually not far from the new location of the Heim restaurant.
So this is a nice thing for people if they're interested in doing something that's more off the beaten path. Go to Fort Worth, stay there, but do the research because a lot of these places are either pop-ups or funky hours or funky days of the week. So just kind of plot your path.
Yeah, and one suggestion for Fort Worth right now is the fact that a lot of these places, it's an up and coming barbecue destination. It's not where Austin is or even Houston right now. So a lot of these places are, they're only open on Friday, Saturday, a lot of them Saturday only. So, that's why I had to hit so many places all on Saturday. But they're not necessarily all open, all week long. So you really have to plan, and it's better to go later in the week when you can be there on a, Friday, Saturday.
True. Okay. That makes sense. That's great tips. And Ryan, thank you so much for this. This was so insightful. And as I've mentioned before, there's like a fear of missing out. Like when you follow along with BBQ tourists, like you're like, but it's so wonderful. Thank you for, you're doing God's work. You're helping us out. And I know that a lot of people will probably mimic the tour that you did.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, if you want to try something new in Texas, go to Fort Worth and try these new spots because they're really doing interesting things.
Excellent. Well, cool. Well, have a great evening.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you too, Ryan. Thank you for everything.